If you are someone who is considering moving, then watch this video because I'm going to be sharing 3 lines that are in your astrocartography chart that can be some of the most beneficial lines to live on, even though they are the most commonly fear-mongered lines. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Isabel, your spiritual rebel friend, and today we are talking about 3 lines in astrocartography that are commonly fear-mongered and considered quote-unquote negative in modern interpretations, but as I've discovered can be some of the most powerful, beneficial lines that you can choose to live on from personal experience and from working with my clientele. In today's video specifically, I'm going to cover a quick recap into what astrocartography lines are, the 3 astrocartography lines you may consider living on, and how to use astrocartography to choose where you move to. So if you are someone who has the itch to move, whether that's cross towns, cross country, cross state, cross continent, then you know that it can oftentimes feel like it's a huge hurdle. Moving is not something to be taken lightly, and oftentimes it can feel so overwhelming to choose where you move and why. And commonly there's an intuitive call to a certain place with many of my clientele. And so at the end of this video, while I want to still touch on these 3 places that I consider can be very beneficial lines, even though they're fear-mongered, I also want to share how you can use astrocartography as a summary to pick the place you live and why these 3 lines in particular may be beneficial for you. And if you like this video on astrocartography, please let me know down in the comments below if you want me to do more videos talking about specific lines or specific questions you may have regarding astrology and choosing your place to live. And the last note before we dive in, if you want to go deeper into your astrocartography and choose where you should live and move to based off of your unique astrology, both your birth chart and your astrocartography chart, I invite you to book a reading down in the description box below or in the card up above. So with that all out of the way, let's dive into astrocartography. Starting off with first just a quick recap on what are astrocartography lines? If you've never heard the term astrocartography, but you are someone who is considered moving and you don't know what exactly this concept is, basically imagine that your birth chart is redesigned to create lines over the earth. It's almost as if your rising, your sun, your moon, your midheaven, all the different aspects of your birth chart are suddenly sketched over the world. And so there are certain places where parts of your birth chart energy feel more dominant and easy to tap into, where that part of your personality can become more prevalent. And so if you search for an astrocartography chart, you're going to see a picture of a globe. Hopefully I'll remember to put it on the side here or in a little overlay. And you're going to see that there's a globe with all these lines over it. These lines represent energies of your unique birth chart. I'm not going to get into what different AC, DC, MC, and IC lines specifically mean in today's video, though I will briefly touch on them in relevant matter. So I'm not going to touch on them right now, but that is the general concept. Astrocartography lines are energetic lines over the earth unique to your birth chart that mean that these energies can be more easy for you to tap into or embrace in certain areas of the world. So basically it's you have a unique map of how the world influences you. So some lines in astrocartography are considered to be very positive and easy, such as the sun's lines or Venus lines, because the sun is warm and radiant and Venus is love and beauty. But there are 3 lines I've noticed in my research that commonly get told are challenging lines to be on, or some even say very negative. But I've actually discovered that these can be 3 lines that are extremely positive to live on that may actually be somewhere to consider moving to. And I'm going to share personal experience why. So what are these 3 lines? What do they mean? And how can you find them in your chart? First, we have the Pluto line. Now, there are 4 different kinds of Pluto lines you will have. You will have a Pluto AC line, a Pluto DC line, a Pluto IC line, and a Pluto MC line. One thing to note is that the Pluto AC and DC line are just 2 different points on one line. And then the Pluto MC and IC line are one line that are connected vertically. So there's basically 2 lines here, but there's 2 sides of each of these lines, therefore creating, so to say, 4 points within this line. But I noticed that commonly people say Pluto lines are kind of dangerous to live on, or fear-mongered, or not recommended to live on. Let me tell you, I have spent the majority of my life, especially between 10 and 20 years old, 10-year chunk and continue to on my Pluto line. Now, I honestly did not double check which of these lines my Pluto I frequently visit, if it's an IC or an MC, but I want to touch on my general experience I've noticed with this line and something I've heard from clients as well. Pluto lines are commonly fearmongered because Pluto is the planet of unaliving and rebirth. And what we commonly forget is that Pluto, while it is this destruction planet, is that it destroys what no longer serves to give us the opportunity to grow back better. Think about trimming dead leaves off of a plant, or rising from the ashes like a phoenix, if you want to take a more dramatic approach. Living on your Pluto line gives you the opportunity, yes, maybe for destruction, but for the sake of rebirth. I commonly revisit my Pluto line. It's actually, I feel drawn to a place that is my Pluto line, because anytime I'm near my Pluto line, it feels like I have the opportunity to completely redefine myself, to be someone new. So your Pluto line could actually be somewhere where you consider moving, specifically if you're someone who's looking for massive change. Now, keep in mind that I will say, your Pluto line will not necessarily bring change in an easy way. Oftentimes when I'm near my Pluto line, I do oftentimes have experiences that challenge me to be better. And it feels like, okay, growing pains, or I have to do this hard lesson. But I personally, as someone who is interested in self-development, love that, because it's pushing me to be my higher self and heal some of my greater wounds for the sake of fulfillment. So if you're someone who's looking to transform who you are, redefine yourself, or completely change yourself, one of your Pluto lines could specifically be good for you. A Pluto AC line to redefine yourself, a Pluto DC line to redefine how you are in your relationships, a Pluto MC line to change how you show up in your career, and a Pluto IC line to change how you show up with family, potentially. But Pluto lines nonetheless could be very positive to move to. Number 2 is Saturn lines. Now this one isn't as fearmongered, but I still notice there can be a bit of a negative annotation? I don't know words, guys. A negative reputation around Saturn lines, especially if you use astro.com. It says there's restriction that can happen on a Saturn line, where it feels like you're restricted in a certain area of your life, that there is control issues, that there are authority issues, or you simply feel restrained. Some people, I even seen interpretations say health issues could come up. But Saturn is also the planet of discipline and structure. What Saturn represents in our chart is that we all need structure. The thing is, we need to be conscious of the structure we choose, because oftentimes we choose structure by default and it keeps us feeling limited. And so living on a Saturn line, from experience with clients, can actually give you the feeling of structure in a harmonious way that you have been craving. In this example, actually, my dad has been very drawn to his Saturn line. His goes through a place in Colorado that we've commonly visited on family vacations. And he talks about with my mom moving there because it gives him that feeling of structure that he craves. He finds that the closer he is to his Saturn line, the more it feels like structure is provided for him that he needs. So if you are someone who feels like you need more structure in your life, if you're someone who feels like you're always trying to apply structure and balance in your life, but it struggles to, living closer to your Saturn line may actually give you that sense of structure you've been looking for, because structure comes your way. Now, if you are someone who's already very Saturn dominant, if you feel like you give yourself a lot of structure, if you feel like you're very responsible and hard on yourself, or even if you feel like you have too much control issues or authority in your life, you may not want to live near a Saturn line. But nonetheless, I do notice in one interpretation that many people who choose to be near their Saturn line feel more balanced. I actually even had a client who's been drawn to Mexico, and she had a Saturn line there, and she feels more grounded and stable there. So if you're someone who's looking for stability and structure, find a Saturn line in your chart, whether that's AC, DC, MC, or IC. You may feel more balanced and like there is structure in these places in the world. And finally, the third one that I want to touch on is your North Node line, specifically talking about actually a negative experience that my client has had here, but with a positive twist. Your North Node is your highest path to growth in this lifetime. And so if you live on a North Node line, you're going to be more forced naturally into your growth. Now, in experience with my client, she has lived on her North Node line, I think it was specifically an MC line, her entire life. And what she was finding is that she's always naturally been stepping into her growth. She feels like her growth has always been presented to her, not in an easy way, but always being shown the opportunities to grow, to the point that she felt like she was never catching a break. So for her, in her case, we were talking about maybe her moving to a moon line or a Venus line where things were going to feel easier. But nonetheless, I want to emphasize that it felt like the opportunities to grow were naturally being presented to her. And so specifically, if you're someone who feels like you've been wanting to grow, but you've never been quite able to reach into your potential, or if you feel like your life just feels too easy, your North Node lines could feel like a breath of fresh air. After all, I consider the North Node lines, or the North Node in our chart, to be one of the 3 most important parts of our chart, the other 2 being the South Node and the Moon. And so if you are wanting to feel like you're living your purpose, if you're wanting to feel like you're stepping into your potential, living on a North Node line may feel like it's a bit challenging, but it could feel like a relief at the same time. It's like the relief of having a challenge. Think about like that feeling of that rush of blood after you do a hard workout or you do something challenging. That is the kind of sensation that can come along with living near a North Node line that I would potentially recommend. So if you're someone who's looking to step into your potential, if you feel stagnant and like life is, so to say, too easy, you may want to choose a North Node line. But for the final moments of this video, I want to take a quick moment to recap how you use astrocartography to pick a place to live, and use this as a moment to offer a disclaimer. Disclaimer, these are just 3 places I've noticed in specific interpretations can be positive to live on. I do commonly hear people say these are maybe negative or challenging places, and they certainly can be. But I wanted to shed light on the maybe positive aspects that can present themselves with these lines from personal experience living here and seeing how it's benefited me and seeing how it's benefited clients. In the end, astrocartography highlights the concept that is already present in the birth chart, which is we need all of our energies. Our purpose is to embrace our whole birth chart in its highest expression and vibration. Those things like the North Node may be more important, harder for us to lean into. We need all of our birth chart. And so if you're feeling the call to move, simply put, you may be living near a line that is activating a certain part of your birth chart and making it feel overused. It's unbalancing the scales and you're craving a breath of fresh air. So what I recommend above all else is maybe looking at your birth chart and asking yourself, which of these energies feels most lacking in my life? For example, for my client, she felt like her Venus energy was so lacking. She wanted more Venus energy in her life for her Venus placement. So we looked at some of the places where her Venus lines went through, and shocking discovery, she was drawn to places intuitively where her Venus lines resided. Now, on the other hand, for me, sometimes my Mars energy will feel like it needs more, and I want to travel to Mars lines. So looking at your chart and asking yourself, where do I feel lacking in energy? And letting astrocartography be an invitation to look at where could I potentially tap into this energy more is the invitation of astrocartography. That is what it's all about. And you don't have to move to tap into these energies. In the end, astrocartography is the philosophy that it's easier to tap into certain energies in some points on the globe, but you can nonetheless embrace your whole birth chart here and now. So let me know down in the comments below, was this an intriguing insight for you? Have you ever lived on any of these lines? What was your experience on these lines? Are these places you've considered moving to? And does this all sound like nonsense? Do you not understand astrocartography? Is this a new concept for you? Do you want me to do more videos talking about moving, relocating, and or astrocartography? I would love to hear your feedback, your input, and your support, what you want to hear about next, because I'm here to support you in your journey using astrology as your guidance tool or as your roadmap, so to say. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Stay tuned for more videos breaking down the stars and more. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. Once again, my name is Isabel, and from my heart to yours, namaste.